are listening to the Grace Raised podcast. I'm your host, Jaffrey. Join me at my kitchen table for conversations about real-world faith, raw stories, and discussion on walking out radical, jaw-dropping, uncomfortable, inconvenient grace through our relationship with Jesus. Come as you are and meet me in everyday life with our everyday messes and convictions. Lights, camera, action. We're finally here.
Hey.
This is my husband, Alex. I'm so excited that he's here with me today. We have such a special episode not planned for you because we don't really plan anything here. We just kind of do what God shares to our hearts and speaks through us. I know that was a weird way of saying that, but...
To be fair, we've tried to do this episode like 7 times now.
You need to get closer to your mic.
I don't need to do anything. How about this?
You're like, your beard was like engulfing the microphone.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
At least it's glorious.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think you're pretty cool.
Okay. Anyways, any hoozles.
So we're going to share our story, our Wisconsin story, our trauma stories, our very broken parts of our lives, because I think that this is something that we don't talk enough about often in our churches and in our circles, like what it actually looks like to be in the valleys and in the darkness of dealing with like mental health issues and recovering and coming out of trauma. Because trauma is kind of like a gross thing and it's really misunderstood and it can bring us to some really dark places even in ourselves. I don't know if you felt like that was an accurate statement there.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. With I don't I don't know how else to phrase that other than like Wisconsin. You know, our time in that state was an opportunity for us to grow a lot. Like a lot.
It was definitely like that, those years of like God removing us from everything that was safe and comfortable and putting us into a situation that was like, yeah, you're going to just be here for a minute and I'm going to allow like all of these things to happen so that you actually have to deal with, one, your traumas and bringing that to light, but also coming to the realization that you're not like really all that you really have some pretty big things that you need to be aware of and know how to submit to me.
Yeah, I mean, when we moved there, we had this plan set, like I was going there to apply to the police academy, be a patrol officer. And we thought we knew exactly what God wanted us. Like we knew that he was telling us we needed to move. Nobody understood it. Nobody wanted it. You know, nobody could really understand or see what we felt like was happening, but we knew that we needed to take that step. I mean, we had all that crazy stuff happen, like the car getting struck by lightning.
Oh my gosh, like literally, it was the day before we moved. We were moving across country driving. You were driving the van. I was driving the car with the 2 kids with Trolls music blasting in the background. And because a lightning struck our sunroof, it shattered. So we had to do the whole drive with a black trash bag duct taped to the top. So it does the whole whoosh, whoosh, whoosh for 2 days with 2 toddlers and Trolls.
And we had this whole plan set, like, we'd stay with, you know, biological dad and their family for like a month max until we could find places to live. And, you know, I had an interview lined up for Barnes & Noble while I was going through the process of applying. And
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, you're a really good shoo-in. Like, we'll get you in the door and then, you know, we'll do the interview. And I did the interview and I felt good about it. And then they were like, yeah, we only promote from within.
Which is crazy because, I mean, have you gone into a Barnes & Noble's in Madison, Wisconsin?
Yes.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know. It's
Why
like
were you asking me that?
anyone could work there.
I mean, that's true, but
Not you.
It was for the assistant manager role. And I was like, really? Like, we moved from New York to do this interview. And you're telling me that, oh, actually, we only promote from within. That would have been something nice to know. Maybe beforehand. Granted, we were still moving there, but you know, that was a lot.
It was funny because like we felt so strongly like God what called us there.
Yeah.
And we thought like, okay, like he's going to do these miraculous things. He's asked us to leave our job, to leave our home. We have like really nothing in concrete set up. We were just going believing that God was going to provide miraculously for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really weird. I just remember, you know, like we had our bank account, like our identity was stolen. So people were applying for credit cards in our names and
drained our bank
account. And we were, you know, if it wasn't for where we were living, like we would have been on the streets with our kids. And, you know, I just remember applying for, I don't even know, like probably 15 jobs a day. Not hearing back from anybody until fill-ins. And then, you know, we were like, oh, well, this will be good. Still pursuing the cop job. Still dead set on being a cop, like for me anyways. And like, oh, this job will be great because, you know, we'll get experience and it'll look better for me. Like applying for the academy. Oh, you have, you know, private security experience. It'll look really good. Like you'll get through the selector fine. And that was a huge, like, I don't even know what to call it.
Well, it's interesting because like when we moved there, we thought like God was going to just open all these doors magically, and he didn't. And the doors he did open weren't doors that we would have chosen for ourselves. And it almost felt like we were being punished.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's, you know, a lot of drama and things like when we moved there, and even after we moved there, that we had to deal with, like family stuff and whatever, like growth and lots of growth. The whole 6 years of us living in Wisconsin was just growth.
Right. It wasn't what we wanted, but it was definitely what we needed at the time. And even still, like even in the throes of it, probably even just a couple of years ago, I don't think we would have realized how important those years were for us.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we always. I know you don't like the metaphor all the time, but like I say like God's like our sculptor, where we're like an unfinished piece of clay. And I know that's technically probably not even biblical. Like God has a plan for who we are. He knows who we're going to be and whatnot. But I always argue the whole free will thing. Like the free will comes in and makes us that unmolded bit. So like, you know, we arrived in Wisconsin with a version of ourselves that we feel like we were supposed to be. And then by the time we left, we were sculpted into something completely different.
So different.
Yeah.
So different.
Yeah. And like to the point where he legit had to just take his fist and pound that clay down and be like, I have to start over.
You're like, you are too broken here. Yeah. Let's just start from scratch. Let me get some new clay in this.
Yeah. Lots of new clay. We're just gonna maybe a new spinning wheel too. Like maybe a new shop. Like maybe he needed more inspiration.
We tainted his workshop.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like we made a lot of mistakes as people tend to do, and hindsight's always 20/20. But if we hadn't gone through and done the things and decided to do the things that we've done, you know, our opportunities to learn wouldn't have been.
And
That's
there,
great.
yeah.
There.
I think one of the things that really stuck out to me, like reflecting back on all of that, and I think you could probably like relate with this too, is like you didn't even realize how much trauma or how much like mental, just like the mental disability side of things. Like if you're dealing with chronic diagnosable like anxiety disorders or depression or ADHD or you know whatever it might be. And then you add these layers of trauma, like we didn't even realize like how much that was playing into who we were as people and how it was shaping our image of God and our faith and how we lived and thought until we kind of came out of it. Like I would say probably even it was just after we moved here where you were really like understanding how much trauma you had actually walked through and what God had been actually doing through that season. So like while that season wasn't something that we wanted or we thought we needed, it was like there were so many things that happened in that revealed the darkness that was kind of like in us.
Yeah. I mean, we're going through that process of, I felt like God was like, hey, like you really got to be firm to what your name means, like defender of men. Like I used to hold that as like a key, like a badge of honor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm named, Alexander, which Greek definition is defender of men. So I have to live up to that. Or like, that's who I am. That's what molded me into me.
You were ready for battle.
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
I'd find ways to make battle happen.
Battlefields were like the thing you lived for, and if you couldn't find one, you'd just make one out of thin air.
Which is why I think like, mentally when I started Dylan's, I didn't know what to expect, obviously. Like the job description is kind of up in the air by design. I think they don't want a lot of people to know what you do because, you'd be targeted or whatever.
So to clarify for our listeners, Dylan's was a company in Wisconsin that was it was private security, and they were dealing with a lot of cash.
Yeah, it's like armored courier stuff.
And through some really dangerous areas as well.
Sketchy places.
Yeah.
Kenosha. Most people know the name Kenosha because of the what's his nuts.
I don't know if that's the technical.
What is that kid's name?
Kyle.
Forget. Yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse, the idiot.
I like what's his nuts.
Yeah, that's an appropriate description of that guy.
Okay, let's keep things like even keel here.
But yeah, so like, going through places like that, and I would say like maybe a large portion of the people that worked there would be probably fine, mentally, because they didn't take it nearly as seriously as they were supposed to. Every day we got on that truck, we treated it like it could have been our last day. Like we weren't going to go home. Shout out to Mike for perpetually scarring me forever. No, I'm just kidding.
He's not kidding. He's serious.
No, he kept me safe. But like, I already had that adopted mindset of wanting to be a part of something greater, which is why I wanted to be in law enforcement. I wanted to help people, wanted to be part of a movement that is designed for defending people. And Thillins, I thought, would be that extension. And really all it did was just open up like all of the demons that I fought with before. It just brought them to the forefront,
Yes, things that you didn't even realize were there or didn't realize it was a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, like what is depression? Everybody's got different ideas of what that looks like, but you got people like, Robin Williams, who on the outside, totally normal guy, comedian, super happy, but obviously one of the most depressed people probably that we know or knew.
I mean, we didn't know him personally.
Sure.
We just knew of him.
Yeah, don't misconstrue. I didn't know Robin Williams.
We aren't
Disclaimer,
that cool.
No, we're not that cool. The point being is like, at the time I was also super passionate about veterans.
Yes.
And like God brought that job because I worked, to me because I needed it for a lot of reasons, but also I got direct exposure to combat vets and just how terrible our government is and blah, blah, blah. Again, it's not trying to get political here, but, I feel like maybe some of the stuff that I struggled with was taking on other people's struggles a little bit. Like I'm an empathetic person. Dare I say I'm an empathetic person.
Yeah, it took me a while to realize that was there. It was like hiding.
I hide it really well. And sometimes I have to, just because like you just can't carry. Sometimes it's heavy enough carrying your own stuff. You can't carry other people's. But yeah, so going through that whole process, I was interviewed for the sheriffs, was selected to be a sheriff, decided not to because of the time I was really struggling just dealing with that kind of environment mentally.
Right. The environment being private security and being in like this constant state of alertness.
Yeah, I couldn't turn it off. I couldn't turn it off. It's all I did was I went to work. I went into this high strung place where, like I took it serious because I was taught to take it serious. And then I would come home and I'd barely talk to even the girls, and I'd put my headphones on and game and then go to bed and do the process over and over and over again. And I'd never deal with any of it. I wouldn't cope. Like my buddy picked up on it pretty quick, always asking what's wrong, like how you doing? How's the fam? He's making effort to keep it whole, keep me whole. And he took it upon himself to make sure that, we all got home safe, which is why we did. But it's just like, part of that also being in that environment is nobody really talked about the mental stress that you put upon yourself. Like we all goof off and kind of laugh and make real dark jokes to deal with the morbidity or morality, not morbidity. That's not a word. Morbidity?
Sure it is. You can make it a
all
word.
Right, well,
it probably is.
Well, just making light of the situation. Right. And not going to like your brother and being like, listen, man, you look like you're struggling mentally. What's up? Like, let's talk. Take a break. Go take a vacation. Take yourself, like treat yourself, like, it was so bad that like, it just got to the point where I wasn't able to cope anymore.
You weren't living life anymore. You were a shell.
I was a shell, and I was listening to the lies in my head and, getting to a real bad place. Like, really contemplating just ending it. Like, wasn't a good enough husband, wasn't a good enough father. But when I got home, I couldn't be different. Like I wanted to, but I just couldn't. So.
I knew that you wanted to.
Yeah.
I just felt like I couldn't reach you.
Yeah, I mean, how do you're not a psychiatrist. You're my, that's not to say you're not smart or
I think that's exactly what you're saying.
That's not to say that you can't figure out what I need, but in that situation, that's like a crisis. Like when we realized that, we need, like I didn't have it loaded, but I still put my gun up to my head. Like, and I played around with it. I wanted to feel what it was like. I wanted to see if I'd feel regret. And I mean, obviously I did because, I'm still here. But like at that point, that's like crisis stuff. Like that's like go talk to a real person. Go seek medical help.
Did you?
No.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. Should I have?
Probably.
100%. Yeah. I mean, this is also the pot calling the kettle black, but at the same time, like I should have. This is the bad. Sorry, this is the bad part of my brain still. But like, I still think like if I was a real man, I would have dealt with my shit. I would have gone and talked to somebody.
Because you should have been strong enough.
And I would have owned it. Mm-hmm. Like, who cares? People struggle all the time. You know it. You acknowledge it, but acknowledging it and doing something about it for whatever reason, there's still that misconception or that thought in the back of my mind. Like if I admit that, if I go actually talk to somebody, like a licensed person, then that's me being like a weak dude,
Even though you would never, ever think that way about anyone else.
Never. I still, right now, I'm encouraging, if you feel it, go talk about it. I still haven't talked to anybody about it. But you know what I have been doing? I've been talking about it.
Yeah. It doesn't always have to be to a professional. It's to people who make you feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, talking about it's like that first step, admitting it or whatever the freaking thing is that people tell you, admitting that you have a problem is the first step. I think that's for like addiction though, but it's still, I feel like it's applicable.
I mean, you're addicted to your thoughts and to the feelings that you have. It's the idea of letting that go.
Yeah.
It's like you're letting go a part of yourself or you're opening yourself up to something you're not sure you're ready to deal with.
Yeah. I mean,
or embrace.
I mean, you just look like we moved here and that first, what was it? The first week we moved here, we went to Target and I had a straight panic attack. I haven't had those in a while because I was comfortable with where we were living in Wisconsin. I was comfortable with the places that we went to. I knew what to expect. Mm-hmm. And Target was like, if you've ever been to Bangor, Maine, in the Target, you know exactly what I'm talking. There's no windows. There's one door. Like, to me, that's a logistical nightmare. Like, I'm trapped.
Right.
Like, yeah, I know in the back of my mind, it's fine, but that's like one of those things where I recognize that that's not normal. That's not healthy. It's okay being prepared, but paranoid, there's a big difference. But I'm like, us moving here, we went through that process in Wisconsin, went through all of the trauma, most of it caused by me.
That is not accurate.
A lot of it. The trauma.
There was like, if we had a jar full of coins that signified the trauma.
3/4 of the jar would be filled with my coins.
It would be like maybe a fourth was from you.
You're being nice.
But you have to remember too, like while you were going through all of this stuff, all of your stuff, I was also going through all of my own. We were so disconnected and so unaware of each other's like traumas that we were both recovering from. Like I was dealing with really not believing any of my own experience. I had like no concept of what was real and what wasn't real because I'd kind of come to this place where like I had just believed whatever anyone ever told me was true. So if someone's like, oh, you didn't say this or I didn't say this, I just believed them. Even if I knew in my mind that wasn't real or wasn't true, I just, if somebody says something, that's that.
It was almost like you didn't have any self-worth at all.
I had no...
Like your self-worth was what someone told you.
Exactly. Like I believed what people said over what I experienced. And that it like the impact that had was tremendous. And that was a trauma response. And I didn't realize it then. But like when you experience an incredibly traumatic thing as a child, that is a natural response to trauma because you're told, you're taught, you're conditioned to believe that what you experienced wasn't real so that other people aren't getting in trouble, right? So that they're protected.
Yeah, or there's no possible way that that's something you could have gone through. You were so like specific to you. You were so little. There's no way you could remember that. Or you're not remembering it correctly, or there's no way that would have been allowed to have happened.
Right.
Like no one wants to acknowledge the fact that it doesn't matter if you as the observer believe it. The person that's telling you that they're experiencing things or feeling things, they believe that. Mm-hmm. Like that's their truth. Well, I mean,
for so long I didn't. It was like this. I was going through this whole phase of my life where I was having to come to terms with like believing what I saw and heard and trusting that interpretation of it. And so when you're going through all of your stuff and, you're not fully there and fully present and you're a little scary, like I was able to disassociate from that because of my trauma and just to stay in my bubble of like God doing his own work in me. So really like the trauma I experienced, I mean, there were only 2 incidences where I can remember that were really, really terrifying to me.
In terms of like me?
From you.
Oh, yeah.
The rest of it, like, I don't even really remember or was aware of.
I wonder why you don't remember that. Maybe that's a trauma response.
No, I don't think so. Let's
Maybe
just
you're
call
blocking
it God's protection.
Yeah.
But, like, regardless, we're both going through our own, like, stories simultaneous alongside each other. Neither of us really fully understanding what the other person's walking. And God is still doing this very miraculous thing in both of us without us even being aware of it, and like, so I guess my next question for you, because I have a whole lead up on this or follow up is like, when did your faith or God specifically start interacting with your trauma and start reshaping things for you?
Well, first I quit Thillins.
That was a big thing.
That was a big deal. And then I worked in the bank, and that was a different kind of thing. Like it trapped even more. I don't know. I don't even think it started when we were going to the Vine.
Which was a church that we were attending at the time.
Yeah.
Amazing. Some incredible growth that I experienced personally.
Honestly, like all I felt was like I should be better. That's all I felt with there.
Well, you didn't feel like you could be open or honest about
no,
where you
not
were
at all.
either.
Not at all. As soon as I came to, people in that setting about real stuff, I felt like, and it's me feeling, it may not have been true. My interpretation of the reception of it was, what do you like? They didn't really know what to do or say, or even think. Maybe, like, I'd make offhand comments or offhand jokes about, like stuff that my humor.
Yeah, it's dark.
It's dark.
It's dark. Maybe not church appropriate.
It's not church appropriate, but it's how I dealt with it. It's how I still deal with it.
You were masking.
100%. And I don't think no one was really equipped to handle it or wanted to or knew what to think or whatever it was. So I learned really quick to just put a fake face on, I feel like most of the time that we were living in Madison specifically, I was myself. Like after Thillins, I was more myself after, getting out of that scene, but I was still not myself. Like I was still putting a face on for.
Well, you still hadn't dealt with their COVID. You weren't in active danger anymore.
Yeah.
But you were still
like,
not coping with or processing anything.
Yeah. And it was so weird because we go from, ride or die, like straight blood is thick brotherhood to didn't see nobody, like didn't talk to nobody except my boy Mike. If he ever listens to this, he's gonna be like, "You're such an idiot." But like I go from that to not knowing who the heck I am anymore. I turned down law enforcement. I quit the job that I was doing stuff with, and working in a bank, selling people bank accounts. Which, by the way, if you don't know, your bankers are just salesmen. They're just out to get you to buy stuff.
They want your money.
That's all they want. They want you to overdraft and never open a bank account. Only go with credit unions. Okay. Shout out to UW Credit Union.
Which is only valid if you live in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. Yeah, but I would honestly say that the time where I was actually starting to heal and maybe wanting to actually have a relationship with God again was when we stopped going to church.
Yeah.
When we lived in Mount Horeb, and we had that almost 2 years of just us.
COVID was such a godsend for us.
Oh my gosh, it was a blessing. I know a lot of people died. A lot of people were struggling, but for us, we were secluded. We were our own family. We got reconnected.
Yeah, it was the first time we started spending time together. I mean, this was years of you working, not being home. And when you were home, you were playing like you weren't home.
Well, yeah. No,
you were never really home.
No.
You weren't we weren't together in the same way. We were just kind of living alongside each other. And I was managing the kids and Charlotte with all of her doctor stuff and all the terrible things we were walking through with that.
Yep.
And so when COVID hit, we stopped going to church. We were stuck in a house together for the first time. This is the most time we spent together since we got married. Yeah,
and all we did was when we went outside, we would go for walks or we would go for drives in Lola.
Oh my gosh, we had this car. It was the
2002
best car.
Subaru Impreza RS.
And I will never forget the Q-tip.
No, oh yeah, it was an automatic, so it wouldn't engage in gear. So you had to press the little tow truck cheat button, and you couldn't press it without something, long enough to poke the release button. So we broke a Q-tip. We stuck it in the little
car
button.
Q-tip.
So in order for us to go in reverse and put it in park and stuff, we had to use a Q-tip, which was great.
It was that was the first time you got to really start knowing your kids.
Yeah.
And Charlotte got a break from all the therapy and the doctors. For the
stuff.
first time, we were all together. And I think God did that on purpose. not COVID. God didn't do COVID for us. Like, let me just make that's not what I'm saying.
He created a world-born pandemic just so we could get closer. Because that's how important we are.
We're world changers here. But he used that. He allowed that to be something for us that brought peace back in, that started putting all the pieces together. You know, like that whole metaphor, those years before COVID, we're in Wisconsin, all the bad things are happening. We're both going through these horrific traumas, trying to grab semblance of ourselves, trying to figure out what the heck's wrong with us.
Yeah.
And not feeling understood, not feeling known or seen or heard, feeling forgotten and abandoned, feeling like we must have misheard God. He doesn't love us. He doesn't care about us. What the heck is he doing? Why did he bring us out here? We're dumb. You know, we should have just stayed in New York. And then COVID hits, and all of a sudden, these pieces just start getting kind of put together.
Got a different position the week before the whole country was shut down.
Yeah.
And it was a
something you weren't qualified for.
Not even a little.
Had no experience
for. Constantly reminded.
Just want to say, you didn't get Barnes and Nobles, but you got this.
Yeah, that's true.
How did that happen?
It's a position that I was able to work from home. And I didn't leave the house for I needed that. It was 3 years. I'd only leave to go meet people.
Yeah. And even then, it was Mike.
Yeah.
Michael.
Mike and Andrew.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew was a big piece to having sanity during COVID. Andrew
was our neighbor for years. Our youngest daughter and his son, they grew up together. We would spend Saturday mornings together on the stoop of our apartment complex. We'd eat fresh bread because he makes the most incredible fresh bread.
The bomb bread.
And, he's not a believer. No. And yet God used him in so many ways in our life. He brought
ways we needed.
So
that man
much
was a saint.
Sanity to us. And he loved us and accepted us exactly as we were. He didn't expect perfection or anything more. And whether or not he wants to accept this, Andrew, he definitely for the first time, I think, loved us exactly how we were. And I don't think we've ever experienced that in any church before.
No, he depicted what your relationship is supposed to be from a believer better than most believers that we knew at the time. I mean, that's
not to say that the people in our lives who were believers were not doing it well.
Not at all.
Not at all. This is not a dig at you.
You read a Bible and you think about a disciple greeting a rando on the street, and that was how Andrew treated us. Mm-hmm. Fam, love, nothing but respect. And he would have differing opinions, but we could talk about it, and we could do it in a way where we didn't want to just punch each other in the throat. It was just, okay, cool. That's your opinion. Awesome. That's your truth. That's what you believe. Great. We can meet somewhere in the middle. We could still be friends. We could still be family. It's not a big deal. But yeah, so long story short, to answer your question, when I felt I felt like God was starting to heal me after, Mount Horeb was a blessing. And then when we moved here, it's really, the first months of moving to Maine, it was hard to find a church, and we kind of found a church for a little bit, and we didn't feel like it was quite the fit for us. Had some drama stuff, no big deal. What isn't drama?
We're all human. There's going to be drama anywhere you go, but we wanted to be in a body of believers who were authentic, who could accept somebody who's dealing and recovering from traumatic things. Not that we just accept living in sin, but that you could accept the parts of us that are fragile and broken, God is rebuilding. You're not expecting perfection. You're expecting the fruits of the Spirit, somebody who's receptive to hearing God.
Yeah, it's the first church that we've gone to where we haven't had to drag our kids to it. We haven't had to deal with tantrums hours before and hours afterwards, or meltdown. No, I guess tantrums are wrong.
Yeah.
It's meltdown. The breaking down that they have. Didn't have to deal with feel anxiety ever.
Which is amazing. You used to sit in the hallways at church when we would go to church because you were
by the doors,
so paranoid.
By the entries, the entrances, and the exits. Yep. That's right. I did that. Charlie and I would sit out in the hall and color. Yeah, I kind of forgot about that.
Lots of minion coloring books that we went through then.
Oh, man. Tell you what, I really suck at coloring.
You know, you said something earlier that just really stuck out to me, and that was the fact that you felt that you were living up to your name, right? Alexander means defender of men. And the significance that, like, our identities and how we associate ourselves play into who we are and who we strive to be. And I think for, like, me, like, coming into Maine, I was coming in, I think, a little bit more further along in my healing process, maybe.
I felt like you were on a different planet. I still feel like that sometimes.
I'm just, that cool.
Just that good.
That, or you're calling me an alien.
No. Like, to me, it felt like you were leaps and bounds ahead of where I was just emotionally. To me, knowing you for as long as I have, you know yourself. You know who you are now.
Yeah, I didn't know who I was before.
No.
I knew who I wanted to be. And even now, like, looking back, I'm so glad I'm not who I wanted to be.
Right.
I don't want to be anymore who I wanted to be then. I'm so thankful for who God has created me to be now. And that's not to say, like, I'm a huge proponent of not worrying about your identity, like your self-identity, like define who I am. I'm, X, Y, and Z. But there is a proponent where our identities are an important piece of who we become and who we strive to be like. And so for a Christian, somebody who's choosing to follow Christ, even someone who's recovering from trauma or mental health disorders or whatever the situation is, bad doctrine, coming out from a life of, not knowing the Lord and walking in sin and, coming into this whole new alien world, we take on a new identity, but it's not like for our own gain or for our own enjoyment. We don't get to just decide like, oh, this is who I am. It's taking on the image of Christ, becoming image bearers for Christ, where everything that we wanted for our lives, we're able to sacrifice and to lay down and to take on who God calls us. And like, I agree with you. Like, I am very different today than I was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. The girl that moved to Wisconsin is dead. She no longer exists at all. And when we moved here, I didn't even realize like how true that was until I started like sharing things about myself. And I remember specifically there were a couple groups, some new friends that we had made when we first moved here, and they were like, we were having conversations about like who we were and having those honest conversations about like areas that we struggle with. And I was going down the list of like, well, this is who I am. And as I was saying things, I was like, I'm not that person anymore. Why am I telling you this? Like, this isn't true about me anymore. I'm not someone who's
just an autonomous thing.
Yeah, it was just like I've just gotten so used to being the person who struggles with anxiety that's anxious, or the person who has depression, or the person who can't cope with change, or the person who is prideful and self-righteous, and the person who, whatever definition you want to put in there, like that's who I saw myself as. And as I'm sharing this with people, and people are like, I don't see that in you, Leah. I'm like, I don't see that in me either. We're like, what happened? Where did it go? I don't understand.
You know what? That's all it took for it to cure itself. Thank you. You cured me.
You're welcome. But I think like for me, that was the moment where I started realizing, oh my gosh, God did a miraculous thing. We needed that so desperately. We didn't even know how badly we needed that season. Because if it hadn't been for the trenches, if it hadn't been for the desert, if it hadn't been for the isolation that forced us to deal with the things from our past or who we were trying to be, i.e., defender of men.
All the mistakes and everything that we've done and gone through, and stuff that self-inflicted and otherwise.
Yeah, both. It went both. I realized, especially in like the last few months, like I just was realizing like I don't feel like Leah anymore. Leah, she in the Bible, like she was the unloved one. And oftentimes I felt like that. Like I feel like my life has mirrored that a lot. Even though I know I'm loved by my parents and by my family, there are many times where I have felt unloved or that the favor was placed elsewhere, you know? And that's not a dig at all to my family. Like we all have different things. And I am a very difficult person. Again, a person who's come from lots of trauma and probably caused a lot of head scratching from my family growing up, not knowing what to do with me because of that. And, but I realized like I've defined myself for so long and I'm no longer that person at all. Like there's no semblance of who I was anymore, except that, I still love you. I still have 2 kids that I made with you. And even like the things that I want from my life are just so different.
Yeah, you want a freaking Miata now. Like what?
Yes, a little cherry red Miata or white. I take white too with gold rims.
For the longest time, I'd beg you to get into cars and you'd be like, nah, forget you. I hate cars. They're dumb.
Lola changed everything for me.
Yeah.
She was the, what is that thing? The gateway car.
The gateway car.
She did it for me.
She was the gateway drug to vehicles for you.
Yep. But anyway, like all that being said, like I realized for the first time, like in scripture, it talks about where God gives us, he has a name for us written in the book, in his book, or on stones in heaven. I'm really butchering this application in the Bible. There is a passage in Revelations where it talks about how God has a name for us, and it's inscribed on a stone that he hands us when we see him. And I have just been like entranced by this. Like, God, like I want to know what you call me. Because I know I'm not Leah anymore. Like I know that I'm not the person that's abused. I'm not defined by my traumas or my mistakes or all of these different things. I'm not defined by how I felt unloved or unwanted or not believed. And I want to know what you call me. And I spent, I think, several months praying over this. There's a lot in scripture of examples where God has changed people's names and called them by a new name because of the work that he'd done in their lives, the transformation that he did. It mimics that. Like he says that when we follow him and we give our lives to him and we start surrendering ourselves, surrendering the trauma, surrendering the experiences that we've had, all of those things that we've held on to, the lies that we've believed, that he creates us into new creatures, that we are made new, made alive, that the old parts of us are put to death and that we're resurrected into him. And I'm like, God, like, I just so desperately want to know what you call me because I know it's beautiful and I know it's of you. And he was quiet for a long time. I just felt like Leah didn't fit anymore. But one night I remembered asking, I was like looking up all these Hebrew words for like, I want to be named something like something majestic, like roaring lion, Helga. No, that was never on the table, Alexander. But I learned that Jesus actually more likely spoke Aramaic as his native tongue. And I just remember praying one night and asking, like, Lord, I just think it'd be so cool if you like called me by an Aramaic name. And it was a while later, but he woke me up in the middle of the night calling me this name. And I was like, what is this? And I knew immediately that it was in reference to me, like he was calling me as my name. He was saying the name Mariah. So I looked it up days later because I kept like hearing it and couldn't let it go. And it means nothing like what I would ever think that he would call me, but it makes sense to me now. And the definition is that God has not forgotten you, and flowing water or rushing wind, both which symbolize the new life, the living water that we have through Christ, that he gives us new life, but also the work of the Spirit, the Holy Spirit in your life. And I thought, like that is so cool. Like that, what a cool thing to be called. because like I see that so clearly in my life. Like I have been completely made new, alive. I was dead, I was dying, I was decaying, and he's given me like this whole new life and new perspective, and I can feel the power of the Holy Spirit all around me, and I want so desperately for the Holy Spirit to move in my life and to touch other people's lives and to draw them to him. So it was just really cool. And it's Aramaic.
Yeah, my Aramaic name would be like Bob.
Yeah, well, Charlotte said, I told her the story. I told her like how God had shared his name that he had given me. And she was like, I'm just going to call you Larry.
I forgot about that.
It's so like, funny. What of all the names, why Larry?
I mean, it probably doesn't help like when you go to church and you're telling people and you're so excited and this is how good of a husband I am. And you'd be like, yeah, I really think God's name for me is Raya. And then before anyone can say anything, I'll be like, the Dragon Tamer. Like, just insert some ridiculous notion because I can't just be supportive normally.
Well, you were really freaked out.
Well, yeah, because I was a selfish boob.
No, you had valid reasons to be kind of like thrown off by that. I mean, it's a weird thing to come up and say like, hey, by the way, I think my name's Raya, not Leah.
Well, yeah, but all of my reasons for freaking out were selfish. Like, oh, well, because you don't believe yourself to be the same person anymore. Like I was part of your old self.
Yeah, you were part of me since I was 14.
So,
well, no, like, hold on. Wait. We were married at 18, 19.
Yeah. No, we
were good.
We didn't grow up in Utah. We didn't get married at 14 and a half or whatever the dumb age is. No, it was more like, well, you've gone, and again, this is just my dumb brain. Like, I don't constantly, at least I don't think I do. I don't constantly run around thinking like how things or decisions that you make impact me. Like,
I don't think that you do either.
Usually my responses, at least recently, my responses have been much more positive, much better.
You think before you speak now, for the most part. I try to.
Most of the time.
Unless it's the dogs. The dogs you don't think.
I get the full fury of whatever I'm feeling at the moment.
Or if I wake you up.
Yeah, that's not fair.
The first, 3 sentences out of your mouth when you wake up, you should just black out with Mark. Like, it's just a blackout.
Redacted.
Ignore.
Redacted.
Yeah.
Didn't exist.
It's not real.
No. I mean, yeah. It was just like my fear was that I didn't have a part in your new life. It's not your new life. It was just you saying, hey, I acknowledge that, maybe I feel like this is what God's telling me. I feel like he's telling me that, like his name for me is this. That's not to say that, you're like, oh, well, now that I feel like my name from God is Raya, you get out. It's time. It's time. We had a good run. You no longer
fit here.
We had a good run. Pack your bags.
If you're not a dragon, you don't belong here.
Yeah, exactly. But it was just a dumb response.
It wasn't dumb.
I think it was dumb.
You felt like you were losing me. You felt like I wasn't making room for you and that the girl that you married and you fell in love with was disappearing.
To be fair.
And in many ways, that's true.
Yeah. But for the good, like for the better, like you've gone through an incredible healing, restorative process. And that's not to say you're perfectly healed and you don't struggle with things on a regular. That's mental.
I do.
That's mental health though. Every day you wake up and you decide to let it win, to let whatever it is that you're struggling with, you're going to let that, identify yourself. Like you're going to give it power. You're going to say, you know what? Like this is what's going to happen because I'm feeling this way. I'm going to, that's it. That's controlling me. And I understand obviously like real bad, like mental health, everybody's different, whatever, things impact you differently.
But I think that there is truth to like when you are following the Lord, and this is like, I'm going to say something controversial. When you truly follow the Lord and you are really giving him every part of your life, you're submitting not just the sin. You're submitting your thoughts. And so it's not to say that I'm not going to have anxiety. I've been struggling with anxiety all week. I've been struggling with feelings of depression, but it's saying like, okay, I'm acknowledging, now I have the skill set to acknowledge what I feel and not just shove it down inside and hide under my bed because I don't want to deal with it or talk to you about it. But now I can acknowledge it, and then I can take it to the Lord and say, Lord, this is where I'm at. I either need you to help me with the power of your Spirit, because I know he's living inside of me, and I know that you're making me a new creation every day, and I know that you're doing a work and you've not completed it until the day I die and I'm with you. Or I need to just lay this down.
Yeah, but to clarify, to make that clearer, that process can look different for people.
It does.
For everybody. Like some people, they physically can't go out to Walmart and go about their normal life. If they're in it and they're in the struggle and they're in the fight, they can't function like other people. Mm-hmm. Just like, you know, for me, most of the time, I mean, you're my wife, so like you know when I'm struggling. But for the most part,
I know everything.
For the most part, I keep it down packed, pretty good. So like no one else was gonna know. No one else is gonna really see it. Like I could go to Walmart. I shouldn't go to Walmart if I'm in the depths of dealing with some demons. Like going to Walmart is how I get banned from Walmart.
That's your trigger. Walmart. If you see him in a Walmart, just know he's 50%. Maybe 60-40, 60%.
It's a lot better now. I would say
be triggered.
I'd say like 30% likely to be triggered now. I love going to Walmart. That's like my happy place now.
It wasn't always. No. He did get banned from a Walmart for starting a fight.
I didn't start the fight.
All I know is I sent you to get you out of the house because you were driving me crazy, and you came home and you told me you got banned from Walmart.
Shout out to the Waterloo Walmart. That's ridiculous. I forgot. Kind of. Not really. But yeah, just to clarify that, like, I don't want people to misconstrue what you said. Like,
right.
Like, that's not to say, oh, you're not holy enough because you're having a bad day.
Right. And I guess that's my point. Like, we all are going to wake up and have bad days. We're all going to have moments like where the trauma comes back and the flashbacks come back, where things come in, or our flesh is battling and we're fighting against our own desires, which do not reflect the Lord's. But it's not hopeless anymore.
No.
Like, you know that there's hope. And I think that's the difference. I didn't know that there was hope in the throes of it. I didn't know.
I feel like all that's important to know, right, is that you're loved and that you're safe. That's all you need to know when you're battling with your struggles. If you came to me tomorrow and said that you were dealing with trying to cope with whatever, your expectation from me and what, you know, you may not say it, you may not get it, but I feel like deep down, all you want is to be heard and acknowledged that, hey, you know, you're feeling this way, but I still love you. Like you're still loved. You're not, you know, bad. You're not weak for struggling. Just acknowledge that you struggle and like, I love you. You know, God loves you. Your kids love you. Like, that's all you need.
Right.
You know, and I know everybody's different. Some people need meds. Like, some people don't need meds. Some people, you know, they find their peace on a yak on the water and fish, you know? And if you disappear for a week fishing, hey man, like, that's, you do you, Michael. You know, you gotta find that thing that puts you closer. Like, for us, we gotta find that thing that puts us closer to feeling, you know, God, feeling the Spirit, whether that's,
I think it's recognizing and knowing that God, when you have those moments, when you have those days, God is not looking at you through a lens of like, I'm so disappointed in you. How dare you have a relapse? How dare you have fleshy moments in your humanity? How dare you have bipolar or ADHD or any of these other things that can cause us to have maybe like reactions or moments that maybe are difficult and not a reflection of a whole person. Does that make sense? Does that make more sense, like with what I was trying to communicate?
Yeah, I think I just get so jumpy about that.
Because you don't ever want anyone to feel like they're not loved or accepted where they're at.
Yeah, I don't want, because I still struggle with it. Like, you know, I'm finally at the place now where I feel like I can start opening up and being myself, like at church specifically.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Connections Church, shout out, you know, first place I feel at home.
If you are in the down east region of Maine, we informally invite you to a church service at Connections. We will be there personally to share all of our baggage and to love you fully and accept you even if you're crazy and have issues.
And if you have tattoos, fully expect everyone to ask you what they are, what they mean, where you got them, and then we all get in a circle and share.
Yeah, we will all maybe pull up our sleeves and shirts to show you all of our tattoos.
Yeah, that was our first day.
Oh, Jones family, we love you so much. But I never would have gone to church expecting to be in a circle of tattoo sharing.
That was funny.
I think that's the moment we realized that we were in love.
I think so. That, and I don't know, it's just biblical truth, and it's just down to earth and honest. There's no falsities, there's no expectations, there's no errors. It's just
you are human.
That's it.
You're human, not with permission to just continuously live in sin, but like actually feel like you are loved and accepted. And it's like that grace that comes in, not just from God, but also being demonstrated through his people. Like, this is how we should live. It's like Andrew got saved and started manifesting God's spirit. You know, like, we're just in a church full of Andrews.
Yeah.
Who love Jesus. Andrew, we will get you.
No.
You will come over to the side and realize what you've been missing.
You do you, bro.
No. You need Jesus.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's yeah. That's it. I don't have anything else to say to that. I mean, it's just we just got to be more honest with each other.
Honest.
And just earnest. Like, damn, you ask somebody how their week was, expect a real response. Don't ask that question with the expectation or the hope that they say it was good. Mm-hmm. Like, ask that question if you're truly ready to hear it.
Yeah.
You know?
And when people share the dark things, tell them that you love them.
Yeah. Or, damn, a simple empathetic, oh man, that sounds like it was really hard. I'm sorry you had to go through that. That'll make or break somebody. Mm-hmm. Honestly. If they're in the thick of it and they're getting their butts to church and they, you know, or wherever they're going, it doesn't have to be church. It could be freaking Walmart. They drag their butts to Walmart.
I think you should start evangelizing in Walmart.
No. No. I think
that's your calling.
That's never been my calling. That's never, it would take one person to be like, well, why do you believe that? And I'd be like, because it's the truth. Why don't you believe it? And I'd get confronted. No, it wouldn't happen.
You'd end up banned from Walmart again.
And again, it's about a relationship. God, don't even start on the whole evangelism.
Okay, sorry. Well, that's a topic for another day.
Like, geez Louise, man. Trigger much?
So anyway, wrapping things up now because it's been like an hour. We might need to break this up into 2 podcasts.
Nah, they can sit and suffer.
I just really wanted to like take a moment. I know we've talked a lot about a lot of dark stuff, but like really the heart of this is just authenticity.
You had the slogan. I already gave it to you.
What? I forgot it.
You're loved. You're safe. Oh. God loves you.
That's your slogan, people. You heard it here. Also,
put it on a t-shirt.
There's a few things. So wrapping this up here, be encouraged. Even if you're in the darkest place and you feel like you've obeyed God and you went somewhere you thought he was leading you to and everything's falling apart and it's just like crazy, He has a purpose and a place for you. And sometimes he does and allows things in our life that are crazy hard and messy and dirty and will isolate you and push you. But he's doing a deep work. And if you let him do that work, and if you're honest with yourself, with other people,
just get out the way, man.
Just get out of the way, guys. You're going to see some incredible things happen. You're going to understand and begin to understand God's grace, which I think you're finally starting to understand a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just being loved and accepted without having to be put together.
Yeah, because I'm never put together. I may have airs, but I'm not. It's a lie. It's a trap. My fellow nerds will get that.
And also, in other news, as we were talking about names, even though God hasn't given Alex a different name, so I guess he's still defending men, he's just going to defend men in another way. Their mental way.
What?
I don't know.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Cut that out. No. Leave it in. This is raw, unedited. We don't cut stuff.
Because we don't plan stuff here.
Facts.
This is the Holy Spirit, guys. With flesh.
I don't think God wants to take credit for some of the things that come out of my mouth.
He probably...
That's the whole free will thing.
Oh. Anyway, I am transitioning to using the name that God has given me as Raya because I believe that it's a representation of who he's called me to be.
And anyone that has a problem with that can talk to me.
So you'll see changes on the website, the social media. It's not a legal name change. I'm just choosing to be known by the name that God has given me. And you don't have to call me that. You can still call me Leah. I'll still answer. I won't bite your hand off. I won't tell you you're wrong.
I will. No, I'm just kidding.
I still accept that that is a part of my life and
100%.
that there is a place for that. But I also want to choose to be walking in who God has called me to and the person that I've been created into now, the person that's come out of the darkness and that has actually been able to walk in the grace of the Lord. And I hope that I can continue loving other people at that same grace, especially my husband, because as you've heard, he's kind of a hot mess over here.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I'm just sorry.
Shots fired.
I'm just kidding.
All right, that part we'll edit out.
Anyway, I know this has been a crazy long episode, but I hope that you were blessed and edified and encouraged by it. And we are praying so faithfully that the Lord would just move in your life and reveal himself to you through his grace and his love of you, just how you are, exactly where you're at. Allow him to work, to shape you into who he's going to be, because he's making you a new creation. You giving your life to God, you're going to see a whole new person, full of life, completely restored, even if you have days when you wake up and you think, I can't do this anymore.
I can't go to Walmart.
Yeah, if you wake up and you think you can't go to Walmart, God still loves you. You are still made whole. Okay, enough of that. I have a website. It is graceraised.com. Go check it out. It's got a blog, contact form, book recommendations, all that fun stuff. My new name will be on there as well. So cool. Just kidding. I'm actually really nervous about coming out with this name. Coming out.
Who cares?
I say that. It's
Tell
not the
people.
political version of it.
Who cares?
Anyway.
You're a dragon tamer.
I'm not a dragon tamer. I am the flowing wind and rushing waters of life. Okay, that was a little dramatic. Okay. We love you. Have a great night and feel the power of God's grace.
You have been listening to the Grace Raised podcast. Thank you for joining our discussion today. If you would like to submit a question, a story, or sign on to be a guest on the show, please reach out to Leah at thegraceraisedpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, I pray that you encounter the grace and glory of God in your day-to-day life. May you experience his mercy and his rich joy even in the midst of your messes and your everyday experiences.